2 years ago, I wanted to take a step back from clubbing and drugs. In this video, I want to help you with my own experience in doing so. I will explain the reasoning why, set some ground rules, explain the short-term and the long-term effects, and I will give you some tips in how you can empower yourself to do so. So the reasoning why I wanted to take a step back from clubbing and drugs overall came down to the following things. So physically and mentally, I really noticed that it took a toll on me. I noticed it physically in terms of how my body looked like and how I reacted to the drugs, and mentally as well. I really noticed that the fun was gone and that I wasn't really enjoying itself anymore, but that I was just doing it more to entertain myself because that was the only thing that I was enjoying at the time. Next to that, I was thinking to myself, because I'm 35 now and by that time I was 33, and I was thinking about my own life goals. Yes, at one point I want to have kids. But I was thinking to myself, well, does this all make sense if I have that goal for myself? And the answer was obviously no. I also noticed in terms of how I treated friends, for example, that I wasn't aligned with my own values, and that gave some trouble. I just overall wanted to become a better person for myself, but also for my friends and for my family. I have some goals in how I want my life to look like. So I noticed that this behavior of clubbing and drugs was quite self-destructive towards these goals. So that really had to change. So let's set some ground rules, because I think that's really important when you start this process. So first of all, give yourself time, because although the physical things might only take a short while, getting drugs out of your system, for example, will go within a few weeks. But there's stuff mentally and patterns that you are used to that will definitely take months. Some days will just suck. Even now that I'm 2 years later of making that decision, even now I sometimes just have a day that I don't take care of myself and that I notice that I have to struggle with myself. But I also learned to see the fun in this. If I sleep bad for a night, I'm not gonna annoy myself. You shouldn't fight it when you make a mistake or when a day just sucks. Laugh a bit about yourself, just be tired, just feel bad, and think for yourself that tomorrow will be a better day. One important thing by going to Malta and really taking myself out of Berlin, the environment that you have around you and also the friends that you have around you play a big deal. So if you only have friends that go out, and when you have friends that only do drugs, then it might be that you don't want to be around them. Because that's self-protection and that's self-love to yourself. And it definitely can be that you have to be open about this. And it doesn't have to be that you have to be rude about it. But in certain cases, you really have to choose for yourself and change your environment so that you don't get triggered into going to the club or do drugs. As well, that you have to be honest to yourself. And this also comes down to recognizing patterns and behavior, why you are doing certain things. Why is it that you go to the club? I could definitely say that after a while that I wasn't enjoying it. I was definitely pushing my body, and I was doing so to just fill the void that I had inside of me. And it took me a few years to really recognize this. At first, going out was really amazing and I really enjoyed that. But once I've learned all the things that I had to learn from there, I also had to be honest to myself in what the things were that triggered me to go back there. Was it just for the fun? Was it just for the social conversation? What I noticed on later was that I just wanted external validation. And yes, I want to have friends around me, but I also noticed a lot of frustration that I couldn't hang with those friends in just a normal environment or just during the week, because we were always tired during the week. Then let's talk about the short-term effects. So the first thing that I really noticed were my dopamine levels, and next to that was the enjoyment of the things that I was doing in life. Once you take a step back from everything, what I noticed was that everything just fell off. I wasn't enjoying music, I wasn't enjoying watching a movie, I was not enjoying anything. And that really had to do with the fact that my dopamine system was so focused around clubbing and drugs. I was only enjoying that and nothing else. It will take time to start to enjoy things. So this one is quite funny because on one end it could mean that you are not able to sleep. This of course is a side effect from the drug withdrawal. From my own experience, it could also be that you become really tired. I've been pushing my body quite a lot because at points I was staying awake from Friday up until Monday morning, and once I stepped away from that, I became really tired for the first few weeks. Some days I had to sleep 12 hours. And that's totally fine, but also that it could go both ways. My mood was also changing a lot. So I could be happy, but I could also be sad. I could really easily be triggered. And that has to do with the gut health. Your gut is basically the connection in between your brain and also where your emotions are coming from. And with clubbing, it's not the healthiest lifestyle. With all the drugs that you put in your system, your gut will be annoyed. And this will also mean that your mood will just go up and down, and also your emotions. For me, connected to that, what I really noticed is that taking drugs was such an easy kicker to fall into depression. It was so easy for me to just lay in bed for days, and I thought I was just tired from the weekend. But I was also depressed. I wasn't happy. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't cleaning up in the house because I was tired and depressed. And depression is connected, in my opinion, to if you are happy with who you are as a person. Once you connect these two things, you will see an improvement and you will start to focus on the person that you want to be, and you will probably leave your depression behind. Anxiety, the same thing. Once I stopped going to the club, I started to become easier anxious. And this had to do with the fact that I had a lot of unprocessed feelings towards the experiences that I had. Then let's go to the long-term effects, because it can actually be a confusing time. And this again has to do with unresolved or unprocessed feelings that you had towards the experiences that you went through. For me, for example, I was not only experimenting with drugs, but also with sex and the relationships that I had. And although on drugs I thought that everything was fun, later on I really found out that who I am as a person, my values, weren't connected to the things that I was doing in clubs. And I don't resent that. Like, I think it's super healthy to make mistakes, to find out who you are as a person. If you later on go into a situation in where you try to find yourself, there might be things that you weren't happy with that you were doing at that time. And also that you have to sometimes forgive yourself or just accept the things that you've done in order to find the person who you are. Dissociation is a term that is also really used in psychology. And this means that you take a step from your thoughts, your feelings, your values. And especially once you start to go back to normal life, the values that you thought you might have on drugs, experimenting with certain things, once you go back to normal life, it takes a while to really get used to that. It can affect in how you view the identity that you have of yourself. And even the perception of time might be different. As I talked in my previous video, the blur that I experienced was something real. The 3 years to the 4 years that I spent in club life or taking drugs, they felt like a blur overall. Later on, I noticed that this is something that I don't want in my life. I could imagine what I was doing, but I couldn't connect it anymore to which weekend I was doing what. It made everything really confusing. There was a person that I honestly loved, but due to the fact that I was clubbing and that I was just doing drugs, there was no real beginning to it all. And I was also just focused on so many other things that, well, things just became confusing and sad later on. One thing that I also noticed what takes time is the cognitive improvement in myself. I noticed that in terms of how I thought, I was doing a lot of psychedelics, but also ketamine, for example, so things became really confusing. I was only really thinking about like creative stuff when I was on drugs. And Also in terms of how I spoke. If I look back videos from that time and I watch to myself now, there is a great difference in how I express myself, in how I talk about things. One thing that I also noticed, and especially this is really funny after eating sugar, when you take ecstasy, for example, or you take MDMA, there is this common knowledge about the fact that you start to put your jaw together. I only noticed this like a year ago when I stopped eating sugar, that feeling of putting my jaw together. If I, for example, had a day that I would eat a lot of sugar, I would still have that feeling in my jaw, and that was really annoying. And that feeling gave me craves to going out, to using drugs. The last thing that I would really like to pressure is your gut health. I've talked to so many people, but also for myself, about depression, feeling bad, and etc. And not understanding what the connection of your gut is towards your brain and how your emotions and your moods and your feelings are built up. And cleansing the gut really takes a time. If your gut is annoyed, it's such a precious organ, so to say. Once you annoy it, once you irritate it, it takes a while to really make this healthy again. Then I want to go into the things that stimulate your process and make you stay calm, or at least help you in doing so and help you in comprehending this all. So one important thing in this period might be that you have a journal with you and start to recognize the patterns and the behavior that you have around drugs and clubbing. This will give you an insight from the things that might stimulate this. You can also do this by creating an Excel sheet, for example, and put in there everything that you do during the day. From here, you can give yourself, for example, if you struggle with anxiety, put an anxiety tab in there and give yourself every day a grade on how it went that day. Did you have a lot of anxiety? Once you start to change things in your diet or in the way that you live, you can start to recognize what the triggers are for you. And this is also really important for pattern recognition, behavior, what are the things that trigger you. And then you can start cutting out those things that are triggering you. Your diet will be so important and will make it so much easier. I gave you the example of sugar, but on the other hand, there are a lot of things that you can do to make sure that your gut gets in order. For me, what really helped was only eat natural things and to stay away from sugar, but also carbs. This made me already feel a lot better. The same thing for filtered water and tea. Herbs can be really helping you. A ginger tea with lemon in the morning can really stimulate you, can really make you feel healthy or make you feel awake, make you feel better. Also, if you just want to sweat out all the toxins out of your body, either ginger or peppermint can really be helpful there. One thing to also stimulate your metabolism and get toxins out of your body is the exercise that you do, or sport in general. Of course, sport and exercise can not only be stimulating for getting toxins out of your body because you stimulate your metabolism, but it can also really help you with your mindset and how healthy you feel. If you struggle on a day in either the beginning or later on, what I can really advise is breath work. You can use the methods from Wim Hof, but you can also just go for a walk outside. This is really helpful. If you have a craving, try to get your mind off that craving and don't fall into it. Go for a walk, do some breath work. If you're gonna take yourself out of clubbing and drugs, you will have a lot of extra time. That's what I noticed for myself as well. So it's handy to look for some new hobbies. It will be really helpful to also help you answer the question, okay, if I don't like this, what do I like then? And for me, it's making YouTube videos, but also I enjoy nature a lot, as well as I am Dutch, so I like to cycle, I like to boulder, I like to sport. So try to focus on those things as well, so that you stimulate yourself and also get more close to the person that you are. Lastly, what I really would like to mention is, since your environment, but also your friends, are so decisive for how you deal with all of this. Once I came back from Malta, what was for me really important, and this might sound a bit harsh, but I wanted to have clean, healthy friends in my life. I recognize the fact that only having people in my life that do drugs or club every weekend, I'm not mad at them. I'm not hateful because it's all my own decisions and it's also my own responsibility. But not having clean and healthy friends in my life really made me sad. And by having healthy and clean friends in my life, I noticed that life could also be different. It's hard, yes, to sometimes step away from people that you love. It's hard to step away from people that you like. But it's also my and your responsibility to create an environment where you are going for the things that you want in your life. So yeah, this was also quite a longer video, but I hope to give you some insight in my ultimate guide for, well, stepping away from clubbing and also stepping away from drugs and what it entails. So I hope you liked the video. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. And then there is nothing else to say than big hug, much love, and then I see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.